Hello.
Hello, Kuntsquad.
Let me work this one out.
Hello?
Hang on, wait a minute. Hello?
Hello, can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah, yep, here now. All good. How are you?
We're doing great. We just got done blasting Satan's cock, man.
Oh, nice one. This is Nick, by the way. He's here with me.
Hey, how are you?
What's up, Nick? How you guys doing, man?
Yeah, good. How are you?
We're doing fucking great, man. You know what? Before I say anything, I do want to say happy belated birthday to Paula, man, because I saw.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, just another year. I try and forget my birthdays. Try not to. Yeah. Anyway, time moves very quickly.
Hell yeah. So tell us what's been going on in the world of Kuntsquad. What have you guys been up to?
Oh, just the usual here in Australia. We just gig, and yeah, just around Melbourne where we come from, and then we do a fair few trips interstate when we can as well. So it's unlike the US. It's very, it's kind of the next city is quite a few hours drive away, but yeah, we try and get away when we can.
Hell yeah. Now, am I saying? I'm sorry.
Last year we were playing gigs like pretty much constantly, and we've already done a couple this year. And I think we're taking a little bit of a break from the gigs for a month or 2 months or so.
Hell yeah. Now, I gotta ask, because I saw that there was. Am I saying the name of the band right? Because I saw that there was like a certain way you're supposed to actually pronounce it.
That's more of a censorship waiver.
Yeah.
So we tell people it's pronounced Kuntsquad, but we all know it's Kuntsquad.
Okay, I got you. Yeah, I saw that and I was like thinking to myself, what the fuck are they talking about, man? There's no way.
Yeah. Yeah, it's only because like some people, I mean, you know, some people are still offended by that word. I don't really understand why that is, but you know, there's some people very conservative in their views around that particular word. But you know, it's rooted in, it's got a bit of history. So you know, if anyone wants to look it up, they can look it up the word Kunti, and it'll come up with a whole bunch of stuff around this woman. So yeah.
So how did you guys come up with the name? Like, what was? Is there a story behind it?
Oh, not particularly. Like the band of the name came before the band. I was like, if I'm ever, going to do another band, it'll be called Kuntsquad. But yeah, no real story. It was just, I thought it sounded okay, and it also had, connotations, obviously. And in Australia, we like to take the piss, obviously, and we're the shitlords of Melbourne, I think, in many ways. So,
yeah, I thought it was hilarious when you guys first approached me about it. The first thing I thought was like, "What the fuck, man? Of course, man, absolutely.
Yeah.
Sign me up, man. I'm
Yeah. Oh, and it's even funnier when people realise there's a girl in the band.
Yeah.
What? Kuntsquad with a girl in the band? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and then the name of the record, Satan's Cock, man, like fucking shit, man.
Yep.
You guys just going all the way, man, like fuck it.
Yeah, well, you can tell that story, Nick, about the way that came about.
Yeah, well, it's pretty much inspired by Bill Hicks and his stand-up comedy, and then it came about around the same time we were watching the Bill Hicks shows. We ended up going. Paula and I went shopping together, and we were just being dicks, walking through crowded places and stuff, going, clip clop Satan's cock, and yeah, I had no idea at the time that Paula would end up making a song out of it. Yeah.
I was that impressed with that little rhyme. I thought, well, that'll be good. Let's work on that as a title, and the rest is history, because it basically it kind of wrote itself in many ways. Once you've got that theme, it's like, okay, let's go with it. And ended up being pretty much a thematic kind of recording or album. Didn't really start off like that, but when it sort of all came together, it was pretty obvious what was going on.
Oh yeah.
So
yeah, I also got to say, like, the album artwork is fucking it's beautiful. Like, who did that?
yeah, that's Rock. He used to be in an Australian band called Sadistic Execution. I'm not sure if you know them at all, if you remember them. They were back in the day, like probably in the 90s. Yeah, so they were kind of legendary for being probably the first lot of shitlords in the metal scene here in Australia. So, I mean, they did a fair bit of touring overseas as well, and, you know, it's pretty much shock value. But Rock is now, you know, doing a lot of art. He's done a lot of art for many international bands as well. And also Chris Hades, who's the guitarist in that band, he also does art. And they're, you know, both still kicking, as is Dave Slave, who was in that band. But, yeah, so Rock ended up doing our artwork again, because he also did the artwork for our first release. So he's got a particular style, which I kind of like. It's very distinctive. You can immediately tell his work. And, you know, he's got a similar sort of sense of humour, so it kind of worked well with, you know, where we were sitting at in terms of, you know, yeah, how we wanted to be represented, I suppose.
Yeah, you know, it's hilarious. I've looked at this album cover a million times, you know, since working with you guys for the last few months and whatnot, and I didn't even realize until recently that there's actually a giant fucking dick on the cover.
Yeah, I know.
I thought that was like, I don't know what I thought it was. I was mostly paying attention to Satan sitting there, and I guess I just didn't notice. I thought it was like a fish or a fucking snake or something. And
I realized
I'm
a
like,
lot like a...
Yeah.
it looks like a Venus flytrap. Like, it's like this, yeah, big sort of gnarly, I don't know what. But, yeah, when I first looked at it, I thought, yeah, I had the same sort of, yeah, I was looking at Satan as well. I was looking at the demon, and then I thought, oh, hang on there, that's a dick. It's a huge dick, but yeah, anyway.
Yeah, it's a whopper.
Yeah,
it doesn't quite look like the dick, but yeah, it is definitely dick.
Yeah.
So, it's massive dick.
with teeth too, man. Fuck.
Yeah, it's gnarly. It's pretty gnarly.
Got shit dripping off the teeth and shit. Fuck, man.
Yeah.
It's fucking crazy, man. I love it. So,
yeah, cool.
So you guys been kicking since, well, I'm looking on fucking Metal Archive. It says your first demo was in 2022.
Yeah, that's when it was released. Yeah, it took a while to come out. Like, we had released our that sort of album, if you want to call it that, probably about a year after it was officially released with Wormhole Death, but we'd released it ourselves, and then our management kind of shopped it around, and we ended up getting 2 offers, and we were really surprised with that, because we thought, oh, really? Somebody wants to release this for us? Well, we were just like, what the hell? Anyway, so then a second pressing came out, official pressing through Wormhole Death. Yeah, so that was, I think in 22. But by then we'd already started writing again, and it was like, as things go, you know, the band progressed, you know, musically as well. So it was like, it was already old news by the time it come out. But anyway, we toured it, and then it took another 2 years for this one, for Satan's Cock, to come out, because it was a bit of a drama, this one, because we had to start again. We had, you know, Steve, our ex-guitarist, sort of, you know, leave. He wasn't well. He's since passed away, sadly. But, yeah, so then Nick's joined, and basically, yeah, it took... And I know Nick came in. You came in pretty late in the piece. In fact, we'd already started recording, and most of it was done. And we were just waiting for Nick to make his way to Melbourne, because he's originally from Brisbane, which is another state here in Australia, right up north.
Another city.
Yeah, another city. And so, so when he got to Melbourne, he he's pretty much winged it, but he put down his lead tracks on what we'd already done, and yeah, it was done.
Hell yeah! So you guys been with Wormhole Death pretty much since the start.
Yeah, pretty much since since 2022.
Nice.
So we actually formed in it was around about 2016, 17, depending on who you asked. But we had no intention of recording. We had no intention of actually really not doing much. It was more just some friends getting together and just jamming on old stuff that we knew. So we were basically playing music from my previous band for many, probably more than 2 years. And then it wasn't until we started our followers are kind of like, are you going to release anything? You're going to do anything? Like, oh, I don't know, should we? So we did, but that meant writing some more songs. We only had ideas to release an EP, to be honest, because really didn't have that many songs. But then it ended up being a whole album worth. Mind you, it's not very long because every song's pretty short.
Yeah. Well,
yeah.
That's really cool. So Wormhole Death's been pretty cool with you guys so far, huh?
Yeah, they've been really non-controlling, which is really good. They've let us do what we wanted to do. In fact, they've been like Carlos, who runs that company,
mm-hmm.
And they're based in Italy, I think. So he was really impressed. In other words, we decided we'd record this second one. We hadn't even given him a demo as to what it was going to sound like, but he was keen to keep going and signed us without even hearing it. It's like for this record, I mean. So it was like it shows good faith, I suppose, on their part. But yeah, we appreciate that because nothing worse than a record company telling you how to be, what to do, and probably censor you. Mind you, we've been censored a fair bit here as well, but they've been nothing but supportive.
Hell yeah. Well, the reception so far for this new record has been really, really fucking good, man. Like, I mean, I've been seeing you guys pop up everywhere.
Yeah, I think it's exceeded all expectations so far. We knew it was going to be, we knew it was going to get some attention, but yeah, not the level of attention it has gotten so far. But yeah, it's been pretty awesome.
Hell yeah. As far as lyrical content and stuff like that, can you tell us some of the themes and stuff that you guys are talking about in these songs?
Yeah, well, it's the whole album is pretty much a journey into the curiosity of the various topics that I sort of bring up. The lyrics are intentionally kind of sparse, but the titles are meant to grab your attention, and it's always a bit of a twist with us. In fact, the album's pretty much about it's fairly political in the sense that it talks about, or it questions things like the regimes, the various structures we all live, we're subservient to. It talks, asks a question about AI. It asks a question about drug use and criminalisation. It asks questions about consumerism. So there's a few things in there that are pretty dark. I've never been one to sort of write love songs, to be honest, so everything always has a sort of some of it's narcissistic, but some of it not narcissistic, nihilistic. Did I say that? Nihilistic, and often it's it's my own sort of spin on things that are going through my head in terms of why is. So yeah, that's basically the theme running across most of those titles and the songs.
A lot of the attitude in it is very similar to a lot of what Bill Hicks was talking about in his stand-up comedy. So it sort of goes side by side in the sense that there's like fucking having a go at capitalism and this and that, but yeah, and same with Bill Hicks also used satire as a form of rage, I guess, and this is fairly similar in that way, I guess.
nothing's. It's not as superficial as the titles might suggest. To be honest, it really is just a journey into trying to understand why we have the conditions that we have. I mean, humanity is up against so many, outrageous happenings at present, even historically. But it's just a spiral in or descent into like absolute chaos at the moment. I don't know, like what's going on in the US at the moment. It's a bit dire there. What the hell?
God.
Like, yeah, I know, right? It's crazy, and I look at it and think,
somebody help.
It's so like it's so true. Like I don't understand it. It's it's just it's almost dictatorship. But anyway.
It is crazy, and you bring that up, and the truth is, like, honestly, I like that. I think that is cool because, I mean, when you look around at the world and everything that is going on or that has been going on, there's no shortage of fucking shit to talk about that is
totally
very dark, and it's just very there's a lot of. Yeah, but I like sometimes it takes more often than not it takes a comedian to bring it out and show it to the general public so they can digest it a little bit better, and that's weird.
Yeah,
but
go on. Go on.
That's all I was gonna say. Like,
I was just gonna say, Bill Hicks is, Nick's spot on there. Like his satire, like if you've ever watched any of his stand up, he's passed away now, but if you ever watched any of it, like he is a scary dude. I think the audience often pretty polarized, and you can tell like some of the laughter is a bit, reserved, but he was dead serious, even though he was mocking it. That's the satire part of it. Reality is that we're all part of it, and we're probably really conscious of what's going on, but we're all kind of also trapped and a bit powerless to instigate any sort of change. It's a bit like divide and conquer, and that's an intentional kind of strategy by the powers that be to keep us all subservient and, in our place. And they just want to keep us dumb and, uninformed and complacent. So it's a bit, when you start to challenge that idea of complacency and get, people to think a bit more about what the hell is going on and what can you do about it, it can be a bit confronting because people do. I know I do. I feel powerless. So there's the nihilistic part of it. For me, it's like, well, what fucking I can do about this? Like, I'd like to do something, but one person can't change the world. I don't even think that a group of people can change the world. I look at what happens here in Australia, and we've just had our so-called Australia Day. Some people call it Invasion Day, based on the Indigenous population here and their struggle to be recognised. And so when you look at that, I mean, I know there are thousands and thousands of people that turn up for those marches every year, and yet there's no action. The governments realise there's a strong voice for, but nevertheless nothing happens. It's like, well, I used to believe in people power, stand up, but apart from an absolute like civil uprising, and that means like everybody, standing up and going, no, fuck you all, I don't think anything's going to change. So, it's pretty hard to predict if that is ever going to happen. I'd like to think that people, particularly in the US at the moment, holy cow, like, you want people to stand up and go, no, cunt, no, we've had enough.
Mm-hmm.
But, whether that's a viable, vehicle to get change, I don't know anymore.
Yeah. And it's a really hard topic to even engage with people with, really. But when you do it with music, or with comedy or something like that, it's sort of it makes it more approachable. Like, it makes it easier to sort of get the idea across, or at least open up a conversation, I think.
Yeah. I mean, this it's not meant to. None of this is preaching. Our album's not about preaching. It's actually just about thinking. Think about it, and I think everybody's look. The album's been received really well. I've got to say, so I can't complain. So I think most people understand what we're about and get it. There was. It's been. Yeah, it can be polarizing because it is extreme, and people. We wanted to really play on that. Like, I suppose we really wanted to bring out, sonically the grotesqueness of the theme of the record without, putting too many people off, because ultimately you want people to listen to it. And, so far it's been, nothing but really, really cool. So I'm glad that people are, understanding, what we're about. And you can, you could also take it very superficially if you really wanted to. So, everybody's different.
Yeah, I mean, we joke about putting, backward messages saying kill yourself on the album, but there are backward messages on the album telling you to kill yourself.
But, don't do that, folks. but, we don't want you to kill yourselves. But honestly, that's how you feel. Like, that's, the nihilism in that comes through. I don't want to sound sort of, doom and gloom. It's not what we're about. If you ever see us live, we kind of poke fun about, I talk too much and poke fun at ourselves. We're the first to take the piss. So we're not precious about that. Or certainly I'm not. And I think when people do actually see you live, they realise, oh, hell, okay. So they're not so nihilistic, but there's a deeper message if you want to go there. But superficially, it's all about entertaining people, right? You want to grab their attention and, keep it, and hopefully they can join in the conversation if so, they want it. So
yeah, that is really, really actually cool. Like, just judging on it, like, based on the surface, I just thought it was you guys were just taking the piss out of a lot of stuff. I didn't
totally
know. Yeah, I didn't know that there was that many deeper messages in there, but like that actually makes it even cooler, to be honest.
Yeah, well, thank you. And I was purposefully, like I said, that with the lyrics, it's quite kind of minimal, because it's for me, it's always been about grabbing the attention of somebody, anybody wants to listen to it, and the titles are meant to, I suppose, apart from shock you. Some people find it shocking. I don't think it's most of them are just a twist on something, whether it's a movie or, as in, say, your mum sucks crack in hell, like that one. So we all know that line in The Exorcist. Mm-hmm. But, the reason for changing the word into mum is because, as she highlights, our mothers highlight everything that's supposed to be good. And it's also a metaphor for, I suppose, people who, the safety of, and the whole idea of somebody who's common and known to us and trusting to us. So the idea of using that word and the word crack in the same sentence is a bit, the satire is not to be lost in there, because literally the song is about the, using, somebody something that's safe, like your mum, and contrasting that with, the harsh realities of crack use and how common that is, and why that's demonised compared to other drugs, for example, that are considered less harmful. So my stance has always been, let's decriminalise everything and let people make that choice. And I know there are other, things attached to that, but I don't believe in censorship of anything. So I think it's about time the people that make the laws started to consider, humanity as, we're adults, we're not children, so start treating us like adults.
Well, I totally agree. And I think that it's I don't even think that it's that they care or anything like that. I think it's just all about control, man. Because
totally.
What the fuck, man? People are gonna do what they're gonna do. Like, you can only regulate so fucking much. I mean, fuck.
Well, that's right. Like, people will access it if they want to anyway, and so be it. But at the end of the day, we're talking about a black market, right? So everyone has to go to the dodgy dealer down the street, and and potentially get, I don't know. The US would be similar to here. You're not allowed to have, you're not allowed to be in possession of, and depending on the quantity you have. So, that somehow, so all of the what we would consider, or they consider to be harder drugs, there's a bit of a sort of like red herring there, because I don't know, like, some people would say all drugs are bad. Yeah, okay, so they might be. But why then are we choosing to discriminate? I mean, alcohol and tobacco are just as harmful if you want to go down that path. But at the end of the day, because they're not a criminal sort of activity, it's okay. Well, I don't know. If people can't see the hypocrisy in that, it's a bit sad, because that's what we're saying. Like, we're saying that some drugs are better than others.
Just means you're not drinking enough fluoride.
Oh yeah. I mean, you go down the street and you buy something from some Joe. You're not paying taxes on it, but you go to the fucking liquor store and you buy it there, or you go to the pharmacy, you're paying taxes on it, so that's...
totally. It is. It's about, it's about control, but it's also about, keeping the people that are, I suppose, benefiting from this the most, in a job, in work, and getting, revenue. I mean, how much money would they be making? I don't know about the US, although I suspect it's the same there. It's so much corruption. I just don't trust any of them. So, yeah, I just think the whole thing is a farce. Like, either way you want it, whether you're for drug control or not, it's irrelevant. The question is not that. The question is, tell me why there's such a divide between what you can and can't have, because that is the hypocrisy for me.
Yeah, totally.
Irrespective of whether you think it should be or shouldn't be legal.
Well, as far as the music, can you tell us, like going back to your childhoods, like, what were some of the bands and music and stuff that you were listening to growing up that got you into wanting to do this, and where it led you to now?
Everyone in the band's got a pretty diverse sort of taste in music, and that I guess sort of affects how we play and what we play. But I think for Paula and I, it's pretty, like, we're really old school, and we listen to, we were raised on like a lot of the old school bands, but we make an effort to stay current as well, which is something I don't see a lot of old school bands doing. And so we're constantly trying to stay up to date with what is out there and what the kids are doing, and because it's pretty important to stay current, I think, rather than getting locked in 1998 and that's where your sound stays forever. So we're always trying to sort of evolve and just keep up with what everyone else is doing, and also try and I guess be on par with the things that we find influential as well. But we listen to a lot of different stuff. Even last night we just spent the evening just listening to brand new bands that are out and about, and just taking it all in. But we listen to a bit of everything really. We probably prefer the more extreme side of things, but you can sort of tell that by the finished product, I guess, of Kuntsquad. But so the idea is to challenge ourselves. I always find it interesting to be able to do that, or at least strive to do that. I don't think that I don't like the idea of just sitting on my hands and, you've recorded once and you put something out and then you try to reproduce that. That's just, I think that's just lazy. So like Nick said, I think part of it is also broadening your horizons past what you sort of grew up with, because he's right. Like I listen to a lot of metal
my whole life, I've listened to other things as well. And I suppose when I write, personally, it's a subconscious thing. I don't sit there and purposely think, oh, you know, I should be doing this or that, or I want to sound like this or that. It's actually, it is what it is. For me, it's quite kind of organic. It either happens or it doesn't. And I can't sit there and just work on something like forever and refine it. And for me, the initial idea is the initial idea, and I kind of work with what I have and try and cut it pretty short, only because I've found that if I sort of ponder on things too much, it becomes a bit messy. That's just me personally. So it's a reflection, I suppose, of everything I listen to, and that's why it sounds so different. So people say, you know, how would you categorise, you know, your band? And it's like, I actually don't really know how to put a title on it. I'm not really keen on pigeonholing, but if we have to do that, you know, good luck, because I can't tell you. It is, you know, a conglomeration of different sort of things, because I listen to all those different things. And as Nick said, current stuff is just as influential as the old school stuff, and we both make a point of listening to, you know, new bands and new trends, new sounds, try and keep up with all the, you know, the technical stuff as well, in terms of, you know, the equipment and the I suppose the technology that comes out every year. It's always being superseded by something better. So you've got to do that in order to stay current, but you've got to like it. If you don't, that's all well and good, but that's not our mindset. We like to challenge ourselves. So yeah, going back to your question about influences, we sound the way we do because of the various influences, and because it's not a contrived process, it becomes it has to be you know, an amalgamation of all those things you kind of like and listen to. And if you listen carefully, you'd probably hear, you know, bits of various, you know, styles or bands that you may or may not like. But yeah, I think you can, I listen to it and think, oh yeah, that bit reminds me of that band, and that bit kind of reminds me of that band, but it's neither. And I've always said to the boys, who needs another Slayer where there's one Slayer? Mm-hmm. Right?
Yeah.
We don't need 10 of them.
I know when we were recording, like I came in late in the piece, so I didn't really have any input on the actual writing or anything, and the rhythm track's pretty much done. But when I came in, all I could offer was the lead part, and I just thought about all the cool guitar parts that really got me going when I was, you know, whenever I listen to music, really, but especially when I was younger. And just think, yeah, thought back on, you know, what sort of things sort of really sort of got me into it, got me excited about a song, and did my own version on those. So yeah, I was just trying to basically inspire others through what inspired me to begin with.
Yeah, Nick's lead breaks are quite different actually to our previous guitarist, and it was kind of refreshing. It was really reflective of where we're at. It's quite chaotic, and it's like his lead breaks are very, you know, in your face. So it was perfect for what we were trying to achieve, I suppose, overall.
Oh yeah. Well, speaking of the technological stuff, is for like all the gearheads out there, myself included, we love to hear the gear rundowns and stuff like that. Like, what kind of stuff were you guys using in the studio to get these sounds, like amps and pedals and guitars and shit?
Yeah, we used mostly just hardware as opposed to software. To get the sounds. Paula used it. You used your Mezza, I think.
Yeah, we had a combination of both, straight through the desk, and then we amped it up, so we got a combination of the raw and processed sounds straight through. So it was a combination of that, and we layered, like we did lots and lots of like layers of rhythm, for example, but slightly tweaked every one of them so they all sounded slightly different, which is why you get that huge sort of sonically you can hear that it's a wall
Which guitar did you use for that?
I used the
Jackson, was it?
Yeah, used the Jackson
7-string
Rhodes. The 7-string. That's at the time, and then we used yours because I used your ones as well.
We used the ESP 7-string as well. And for most of the leads, I was using a Jackson Warrior 6-string, just because it was easier to fly around on. And since then, though, we've both sort of changed our gear to a certain degree. We've I'm using the Ibanez Xiphos 7-string now, and going through a Boss Katana head for live stuff, and a couple of effects processors here and there. We use heaps of gate.
Lots of gate.
We're both running at least 2 noise gates, I think, for live stuff, just to get those chugs and that definition. You're using
so I'm using the Arrow. I transitioned from the Jackson. I had a few problems with that Jackson in terms of running the power, so active pickups. Anyway, long story short, but using the Arrow, and I've moved on from the
ESP Arrow.
I've moved on from the Mezza, and I'm now using the Kemper, which you need a degree to kind of run. It took me a while to get my head around that. So I was trying to downsize as much as possible and avoid having to lug a lot of equipment, interstate and what have you. So I've pretty much achieved that. So I'm running most of my effects through. I'm using the Kemper effects. And some of the sound profiles that are available in there, some by Ola, which is really cool. That pretty much that stuff. And I've got a one of Ola's guitars coming soon, which I'm really excited to try out, the Solar V 7-string. So that'll be interesting to see how that goes. But apart from effects, like in the studio, we didn't overdo Pro Tools. I mean, a lot of people like to, substitute, and you can do that, obviously, substitute your own sounds or what you're getting through the cab. I said what we were about. We pretty much kept our sounds true and fairly raw, as you can hear, and the combination of all of those things is what that sound is. And then we did the same with the vocals. We wanted it to be as grotesque as possible, and I think we achieved that as well. So so it was a bit of a genius there through the work of Jason, who is a very good engineer. He has a knack of being able to get heavy sounds. Like, that's what I think his area of expertise is, and also capture the rawness. Now, not a lot of engineers can do that. You find some really, really awesome recordings where people sound so, it's so polished, it's so, huge, but it's polished. And for me, I just wanted to retain some of the gnarliness of the first release, and also keeping true to the idea of chaos and the idea of, things not being quite right. So it's meant to be a bit, disconcerting. It's not a comfortable sound.
Yeah, I think the sound, though, is pretty easy for us to reproduce live. It's basically our gear, our equipment. So, we don't have much problem really getting that sound, at practice and at shows.
Yeah.
Hell yeah. Yeah, you mentioned that Katana, man, and that was making me think, like, earlier this month we went out for my birthday dinner, and we went to this restaurant, and there was this blues band that came in, and they set up and they started jamming, and I was blown away by the sound of this dude on the guitar, and I looked over, and that's what he was fucking playing through, was a little fucking Katana combo amp, but it sounded fucking massive, man. I was like, holy shit, man! Like, I didn't know.
Yeah, well, I'm using the Artist head Generation 2, and it's an absolute beast. It's like 100 watts, but it'll keep up with like a 400 watt head any day of the week.
Hell yeah.
And you can store all your settings on there. I've got 8 channels to which you can store the settings on, and it's brilliant. It's one of those bits of equipment. I wish I had discovered it years ago. It's just absolutely awesome.
I think
his processor died recently, but it's made no difference because that katana can totally cover the little, which one was it? The Digitech.
Digitech.
Yeah, so like it has the capabilities of, like I look at the Kemper. They're different things, but they work so similarly. So it's a really good little unit.
Yeah, it is. It's amazing how far technology has come with, the Kempers and katanas and stuff like that. The axe effects, all that shit, man. Like, I think it's cool because it makes it so much easier for you guys, especially that are touring, to pick up and go. You don't have to worry.
That's always like in the back of our mind is whatever we buy, we got to carry it or put it on planes sooner or later. So, we've sort of tried to keep in mind, like, keeping things down to weight and down in weight and down in size and whatnot for travel. But but we're dinosaurs compared to some of the bands out there at the moment that have got all their quad cortex and everything, and they're running backing tracks and all that shit. Like we're not even close to getting to that level yet. Like we're still triggering our own effects.
Yeah. I mean, I kind of like that. It's kind of organic, but the point is not to sound dated with it. And I think it's possible to be, not have to do all that other stuff. I mean, it's great if that's how you roll, fine, not an issue. And it is good because they probably have even less to carry overall. They probably got more to carry as a band, but individually way less. So whatever saves space and time, that's great. So plus also we don't run, like, we do have samples, but we just run that with, simple, what do you use? Just a phone?
I'm using my phone at the moment, and I just put that through the katana and run the samples.
Yeah, so we don't need a whole rig to have our to do our samples.
We don't need laptops and all the rest of that shit and in-ears and everything.
Fuck yeah. Well, you guys are doing it, man. It sounds fucking amazing. So, I don't know, man. It's you just use what works, and that's what you got to do. Like, I was hell yeah.
What do you use, Zach? What are you using?
Well, I use all kinds of shit. I mean, sometimes I do have a Tonex, which I like because you can download, like the Kemper, you can download all kinds of different amps and stuff and try them out. And but I do have a couple of tube amps here in the studio. Yeah. But I'm not awesome. Touring. I'm not carrying that shit around. Like, if I was going on the road, there's no fucking way in hell I'd be lugging that shit around. No.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, look, the amps sound awesome. Like, I've got to say, I really like my Mezza. The problem is that obviously, like you said, can't really carry that around. The bloody thing's so heavy. But apart from that, I suppose even in terms of like the effects you use, like, I don't know how many effects you're using with your amps, like your tube amps, but I found that I was like, my pedal board was chocker, and it was like with the Kemper, I've scrapped most of it. So all I've kept on my pedal board now is literally just one extra noise gate, my tuner. Even though the Kemper has a built-in tuner, which drives me nuts because it's one of those, what is it? It's like that.
Strobe tuner.
Yeah, the strobe ones, which, they never quite sort of sit still.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But, so that's pretty much my pedal board, and everything else is run through the Kemper, so it's very handy that way. But you're right, like, nothing beats a solid tube amp. Like, it sounds huge, and the headroom you get from that, I don't know if you can really ever replace that with anything else, but I just find that they're awesome. But you have to use everything else with them because they don't come, those things, with inbuilt effects apart from distortion.
Yeah, but I mean, at a show, like for the crowd, and I've been there in the front row, like at our festival, and I watch all kinds of different bands come on there. Some of them have tube heads and cabs. Some of them will come up with just a fucking quad cortex or a helix or a Kemper or whatever, or a katana, you know, and it all sounds fucking the same. Like it doesn't all sound the same, but it all sounds good. Like it all does the trick.
And that's the thing.
Nobody cares, man. Like the crowd's not sitting there like, what the fuck?
No, true. I think musicians are the ones that are more, you know, anal about stuff like that. It's like, oh, what are they using? Oh, what's that? And oh shit. You know, so it's a bit like that. But like the average punter doesn't give it a flying F, but ultimately it shouldn't be that. It should be, like you said, how good does it sound? If it sounds good, great. That's all you want. You want it to sound as good as it can be on the day, and obviously reflect yourself, your sound. So you don't want it to be too different from your recordings per se.
Yeah. Are you guys boosting your amps with anything? Are you using boost pedals?
Before I go into the Kemper, I'm using a TC Electronics Fangs pedal, because I just love that pedal. It's fucking unreal. It's got really nice sort of crunch and mids to it.
Yeah.
And get some top end. And then I'm mucking around with the whole sort of effects chain within the katana itself, like things like moving the solo switch after the second noise gate, so that when I hit the solo switch, I'm bypassing the noise gate essentially, so the noise gate that doesn't actually affect the leads.
Yeah, you can resonance and
just wide open.
And that's the beauty of these model katanas as well, is you can modify every aspect of the effects chain. So we always experiment a bit. I know I spend a lot of time sort of moving stuff around and seeing what sounds the best, and but generally I sort of run a Digitech, just a RP360 XP, which is only a small little model with three foot switches on it and an expression pedal.
That's the one that died.
I haven't been using that lately. I've pretty much just got a volume, a Morley wah, a polyphonic tuner, and the TC Electronics Fangs pedal. And other than that, I've pretty much got my board with the katana channels on it. And that's pretty much it. And a solo fucking switch. That's pretty much it.
Fuck yeah. All right. Well, I'm about out of questions for you guys. Is there anything else you want to let the people know?
Oh, no. Just have a listen if you haven't heard it, and tell us how much you hate it.
Where's the best place for them to go to support you guys? Buy merch and buy fucking music and stuff like that? Bandcamp or
Spotify?
Yeah, Bandcamp has all our merch. So if you go to Bandcamp, you'll find everything on there. Merch, the recordings, whether you want to download it digitally or order a hard copy, which we can send out. But other than that, have a listen. Go to the Bandcamp page, and it's on our. Also, if you go to our Facebook page, you'll find links there to get to our, merch if you want to support the band. But we're just happy if people have a listen.
Hell yeah. All right.
Yep.
Well, before I let you guys go, can I get you to make us a station tag real quick?
Sure. Let's do it.
All right. Whenever you're ready, say something like, "This is Kuntsquad, and you're listening to Metal Devastation motherfucking radio."
All right. Ready? 1, 2, 3. You're listening to
Metal Devastation Radio
with Zach Moonshine and
Kuntsquad.
Kuntsquad here. Motherfuckers. How's that?
Fuck yeah. All right. Well, I thank you guys so much for taking the time to talk to us. I really appreciate it. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to blast some more Kuntsquad for these motherfuckers so they go crazy, all right?
All right. Thanks very much.
Thanks heaps for all the support too, eh?
Yeah, appreciate it.
Hey, man.
Hopefully we'll meet one day.
Yes.
Come visit you.
Yes, let's do it.
All right.
All right.
Take care.
We'll talk to you guys later.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Thanks, mate. See ya.
Bye.
There you have it, folks. Kuntsquad live on the Zach Moonshine Show with Metal Devastation motherfucking radio. Like I said earlier, put your speakers in your windows, Put them in your front lawns. Put them in your neighbor's driveway. Put them in your neighbor's fucking house. I don't give a fuck what you do. Crank it the fuck up loud as a fuck. And if you don't see U-Haul